There was a crooked man, and he went a crooked mile. He found a crooked sixpence against a crooked stile. He bought a crooked cat, which caught a crooked mouse, and they all lived together in a crooked little house. In the second act of The Wolf Among Us, roughly 2.5 episodes in, we begin to learn that the skeevy little worm that is Ichabod Crane is far from the serial killer our heroes might think him to be. Um, right away, I thought there was something more going on. There had to be. We were only 2 episodes in when the reveal was made. And in control of Sheriff Bigby Wolf, I made sure to voice those opinions whenever I could. Um, I do think the writers and designers did a great job at building this sort of sense of dread, this almost sense of we, the audience, know that there's going to be more to this story, that there's definitely going to be some more twists and turns ahead. But they don't. They don't have enough information to go on. And so with painful care and slowness, we uncover Crane's crooked dealings with a certain crooked man, the crooked man, who happens to own most of the towns, like brothels and pawn shops and this sort of underworld network, and he's pretty much just in charge of everything you can think of. Crane has been embezzling money for the crooked man. He's been seeing these glamored prostitutes who work by extension for the crooked man, and he's even been dealing with some of the crooked man's enforcers, some of the crooked man's terrifying enforcers. Um, as Bigby searches for Crane's, he like looks through Crane's apartment looking for any notes he might have left, any keys, anything. He hears a voicemail from one particularly scary lady who's making threats about entrails and dogs and mirrors and stuff, and Crane needing to pay his debts. Yeah, because Ichabod's in deep. Um, and he's in so deep that he even breaks the magic mirror, which they can use to solve basically all their problems with the right creativity. And he takes a shard from the mirror to prevent them from repairing it. And then he makes himself scarce. Uh, Bigby finds out about the illegal glamours that the Crooked Man has been peddling, and he tracks down the witch who creates them, one Auntie Greenleaf, who he thinks that might be able to lead him to Ichabod. Uh, Auntie Greenleaf, who is played by the impeccable Laura Bailey, um, despite the fact that the character herself I found to be quite insufferable. Uh, she's just this mean old woman who's complaining about how poor and unfortunate she is. Right? There's this witch who's been forced into an ugly line of work. Right? She doesn't want to play by the rules of the government. Of the corrupt Fabletown government. So instead of making legal glamours, um, she makes illegal ones that allow people to impersonate other fables. Um, oh, woe is me! I don't want to obey the law, so I'm just going to go and work for a mass murdering psychopath. There's a flaw in that line of thinking. At least I'm led to believe. She even had the gall to play the you don't know what it's like to be the old evil villain in these stories while standing next to the big bad wolf. Um, if if anyone can be redeemed, you'd think it would have been Bigby. Uh, so the first time I encountered this Greenleaf character that is in my first playthrough, I actually took pity on her and offered her a job at the Woodlands, right? A second chance. I'm like, she didn't really have a choice in the matter, right? Since it was either that or I actually don't know what Fabletown does with its like more minor crimes, like non-violent ones. I mean, they briefly mention there being this sort of wizard prison situation. That only comes up later, and it is sort of presented as this new idea, this relatively recent thing. So maybe they just would have thrown her down the witching well, which is bottomless and is where all the bad fables and the dead ones are. They just get dumped down this theoretically bottomless well. Um, but I digress. In my more recent second playthrough, I actually got so annoyed with Auntie Greenleaf that I burnt down her rare magic tree that allows her to make glamours and everything, just because of how insufferable she is. How I found her. I don't know. It could just be that she rubbed me the wrong way, and it's a shame. I really wanted to like the character. Um, and I think she was well acted and an interesting character design as well. Um, there's a point where she like is shape shifted as a small child and hiding at right, pretending to be this little kid, and oh my auntie's not home. Oh, you know. But of course they see through the disguise eventually and reveal that it's just an old woman. Um, but nevertheless, I found Auntie Greenleaf not great, and I burnt down her tree. It wasn't my brightest moment, I gotta say, but it did prevent her from creating more illegal glamours, and also from perhaps retaliating in the future. Um, but from her, we learn that Crane was after a magic ring that can supposedly undo the magic that keeps the workers at the Pudding and Pie from talking about their work. We also learn now that Georgie Porgy actually runs the place on behalf of the Crooked Man. Uh, that is just another part of the crooked little web that covers the city. um, we go there, right? We go to the Pudding and Pie, um, and I make sure that Bigby punches Georgie Porgy in the face on the way in because he's just this mean little British guy, and he's all like, "Ah, oh, you effing made a mess of this, Bigby, you effing piece of crap," and he says some very rude, lewd things about Snow. So I clocked him. Um, we head into the back room where Ichabod is trying to use the magic ring to make the girls tell him the truth. What he doesn't realize is the ring lost its power centuries ago. Uh, he's really harassing Nerissa, the little mermaid. She's like crying and freaking out, but so is Ichabod. He's also crying and like collapsed and is begging to tell him the truth, tell him I didn't do it, because he's a tiny little weasel. I actually barge in and grab him and break his nose. He's very desperate to make Bigby and Snow understand that he didn't do it. He's being framed, and it was the Crooked Man who did it, or it was all the Crooked Man. I believed him, of course, and so did Snow and Bigby. He was genuinely distraught, and he didn't really strike either of them as the type to commit very brutal, very deadly murders. Um, so out in the street, in the dark, the Crooked Man himself decides to show his face, sort of. His limo pulls up, blocking Bigby and Snow's exit from the Pudding and Pie. And at first, Dee and Dumb Tweedle come out with shotguns, And then there's the scary lady, with sort of red and black hair, who turns out to be Bloody Mary. Freaking Bloody Mary from the Bloody Mary myths and legends. She has the woodsman's axe, and a gun full of silver bullets. But she hangs back, giving Bigby and Snow her demands. That her boss wants Crane, and then that's that. They have to turn him over, or things are going to get ugly. Um, of course, there's not really an option to acquiesce to her demands, although I doubt most people would. Um, we refuse, of course, and Bigby throws down with the Tweedles. They shoot him about 1,000 times with their shotguns, and he falls down, and the two Tweedles are like all happy and smiling, and then Bigby gets up, revealing that he's turned into a freaking werewolf, like a proper gray fur, old school man wolf creature. He lays waste. He uh, like just rips stuff off walls, knocking the two guys around like rag dolls. And I'm given the option to kill one of the Tweedles, and I do. I rip his throat out because uh, it's one less problem to worry about. And the Tweedles specifically have had a habit of escaping and becoming a problem later. They tend to like do little tricks and roll out of the way, and then they're up with a shotgun and making everybody's lives worse. So, bam, killed them. Easiest choice in the game. Uh, then Bloody Mary comes up and shoots Bigby in the back. She takes out the axe, the woodsman's axe, and is getting ready to chop up Bigby when Snow decides to give up Crane, which is, yeah, unfortunate. But Bigby was going to die. He had a silver bullet in right near his heart, and a magical axe getting ready to lop his head off. It was a bad way for him. The Snow didn't really have much of a choice. Um, and you know what? The Crooked Man, he actually takes off. Uh, he got what he wanted. He made his point about how freaking terrifying his pet monster Bloody Mary is, and he drives off with Crane in his possession, unable to give up any of his secrets. Right? Uh, but Big B doesn't stop there. He is actually more frustrated than ever. I make a point of playing him that way in the game, taking less and less crap as he convalesces, uncovering more and more about the Crooked Man and his crooked operations. It is such a brutal, terrifying encounter, that whole throwdown in the alley. And it really shows the kind of seesaw effect that happens throughout The Wolf Among Us as a whole. How Bigby is incredibly dangerous, incredibly intelligent, and he consistently gets beat up. Uh, he gets just beat up and beat down, and is forced to wolf out further and further to get the job done until he's almost at the old state he was in before he went through therapy and became like a good guy. Um, it might not seem it at the time, but Bigby turning into a werewolf was actually him holding back. Uh, and that's Bigby for you, right? People are either making fun of him for being a whipped pup, right? Or like he like wolfs out and reminds them just how tough he still is, and they're all pretty quick to shut up. But it's this strange balance, of like I'm not even sure if our first introduction to his Wolfman form should have been marked by that failure, right? By being shot and put in such a bad position, um, because it didn't matter, right? They still lost Crane, uh, but I don't know. I like the werewolf form. It's better than most, I think. I prefer when he goes slightly wolfy. From an aesthetic standpoint, I like him at the angry Wolverine slash werewolf by night phase, as opposed to just some hulking monster wolf guy like you see in most like movies and television and such. The long snout and everything. Not a fan of that. Not for me. I prefer a more man-ish wolf man, if that makes any sense at all. It's chaos. It's beautiful chaos, marked by some incredible music and wonderfully weird characters. I've I originally I was somewhat disappointed by the Crooked Man as a villain. I was hoping for like I don't know, I was hoping it for like the villain to turn out to be like Prince Charming or someone. I know it wouldn't have been like Prince Charming per se, but I that's the wheelhouse I was thinking in. But upon my second playthrough, I found the Crooked Man to be an incredibly creepy, compelling villain. Um, how mysterious he is, and how he's interested in control. Right from the limo, we see his eerie, all too keen eyes, and these twisted hands broken by a wheel. He's great. He's great. And when we finally meet him, I really began to appreciate the design choices in this very tall, lanky, though not really intimidating individual. He comes across as weak with this unnatural strength of will, this creepy nature to him. And in the third act of The Wolf Among Us, it's all Crooked Man all the time. He's calling the shots. He's playing this game with Bigby, looking to looking to come out on top. And it's only through sheer force of will that Bigby is able to succeed. Um, but I think I should probably stop there for now. There will be more on The Wolf Among Us soon, as I speak of the third and final act of the game, in which everything kicks off. Until then, bye.